All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is February 12th. It is Wednesday, February 12th on All in Horns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That's Jake Jimerson. Not the best intro, but we've done enough of these where whatever. And this is your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. Got a fun show for you today. Just a couple updates within the athletic department. Conte had rumors, and he basically denied those himself. Sources, Conte. And we also have a little bit of a coaching change. We're going to have a conversation about Blake Gideon and his new role at, Georgia Tech?
Yep.
And so, we'll talk about that. And him leaving the University of Texas, his alma mater, it is for greener pastures. And I wish him nothing but the best. And we'll get into that conversation in a little bit. And then men's basketball. We will talk about Rodney Terry and where his future lies at the University of Texas and where the rest of this season might be headed. And then also taking on number 2 Alabama tonight in what might be the ugliest game that we've seen in Texas basketball recent history, at least in recent memory. It may get pretty ugly tonight. So, Jake, how's it going, man? How are you doing?
Still reeling from just having to scroll social media and seeing Eagles
Chiefs,
holding a Super Bowl trophy. It's unwell. Rough into the football season, having to watch Ohio State win a national championship, having to watch Philadelphia win a Super Bowl with a quarterback that kind of went to OU, mainly went to Alabama.
Still, I was talking to my parents about not liking Jalen Hurts. I said, guys, he's played for Alabama, Oklahoma, and Philadelphia. At what point have I ever rooted for any 3 of those teams to have any success ever? Of course I don't like the guy.
Yeah, I don't care how much he
won
squats.
Consistently wherever he's gone. Of course I don't like him.
Yeah, and he's had I'm just saying words, okay? He has had incredible teams around him everywhere he's been.
And he's had Nick Saban and Lincoln Riley in college. Probably the 2 best coaches in that era, in those time frames, to be coached by. And then I refuse to say Nick Sirianni is some great coach. However, he's put up great coaching numbers.
Howie Roseman's a great GM.
There you go.
I'll say that. I'll say that out loud. That without a doubt in my mind.
Anyway, Jake, let's go ahead. Speaking of running great programs, Conte, athletic director for the University of Texas, is officially staying at the University of Texas after SMU approached him with an interest of a job on X, the Everything app. And Conte said, denied. I'm staying where I'm staying. But SMU, Jake, I got a little bit of a bone to pick with them. They're just trying to poach everybody. They poached our president. Now they're poaching the athletic director. Who's next? Steve Sarkisian? Is that who they're going to go after next?
I mean, they got bags to throw. It wouldn't shock me if they threw out bags there. But whenever I saw the rumors starting to go out that he was on the top of their list, I was like, well, I'm sure he's on the list, but it's just very hard to imagine him leaving Texas with what he's built there now, the relationship he has with the coaches, and then bringing one of his good friends in as the baseball coach, and Schlossnagle. So I never took too much credence into it. Part of the reason why we hadn't brought it up on the show, we were aware of rumors last week, but why bring it up when it's rumors? There really wasn't much talk about. Obviously, we'd both be devastated if Conte was not the athletic director. He has responded to the tweets from both of us. He responded to one of your tweets recently after the women's basketball win. And not just that, but we love him for what he's done in bringing environments.
Yeah, we're basically on first name basis, me and Chris.
Yeah, come on the show, Chris.
Anytime you want, Chris. We'll have
10 minutes of your time. We'll take much.
We'll take all the time. We'll say 10 minutes, just like we say, it's gonna be a short episode, and then it's a 45-minute long episode. I would tell Chris that I'm like, hey, dude, 5-10 minutes of your time, and it'll be 2 hours later, and he's going to say, "Guys, but we need to wrap this up." And I'll say, "Just one more last question."
I didn't know what's going on the Joe Rogan experience.
Yeah. Essentially is what would go down there. But yes, please come on the show. But yeah, no, we love Cristo Conte. Think he's done everything right for the University of Texas and the athletic program, and I hope the day that he is no longer the athletic director of the University of Texas is either the day that he retires at the ripe old age of like 90 or he's dead. And so that's just where I want him to be for the rest of his life. I'm a big supporter of CDC.
Yeah, not just for the coaching hires and building up the programs and how he interacts with the fan base, but also the environments he's created and bringing excitement and fun back into the athletic programs, the environment around the games. Obviously, he's been able to fundraise better than anyone,
right?
With the facility upgrades that he has seen. They are building a brand new indoor practice facility for football right now. At the Moody Center. I mean, it's just been awesome.
There are cranes that have lived on that campus in the athletic facility part of the campus for a betterment of like 10 years now, it feels like, with the upgrades to the football stadium, the Moody Center, upgrades to practice facilities and athletic facilities, and it's been nonstop.
Texas had fallen behind.
Yeah.
They really had their facilities compared to like Baylor had better facilities for a little bit.
And Baylor has just now recently been, I mean, they're upgrading all of their facilities. Their new gymnasium,
all the programs are. And Texas had to catch up, and they've caught up now. And now they're starting to get to the point where they're one of the leading, programs in the country, just with the niceness of the facilities, the coolness factor, the state of the art, the technology, and everything.
All right. Blake Gideon, Jake, moving to football news to Georgia Tech as the defensive coordinator. Now Texas is looking to replace the safety position, and got a little meme from Michael Griffin kind of poking his head out saying, is it going to be me?
Or Huff?
Michael Huff. I beg her. Yeah, Michael Huff. He's like, huh? Coach, you want to reach out? And I think all Texas fans would be all aboard that train.
Already involved in the program at practices, kind of a culture coach. I don't know what his exact title is, but he's already been there. So it could make sense if he has interest, if he does actually have interest for that. And I'm sure it's someone that Sarkisian is considering. He's obviously still going to do a search. Sarkisian is anything if not thorough. And I expect them to be thorough in the search. And then as far as Gideon goes, 100% understand this decision. You don't turn down a coordinator position at a Power 5 or a Power 4 conference team, and especially a team that is kind of on the rise right now, a program that's on the rise. That is a terrific opportunity that you just can't turn down. It's not like he's a coordinator at Texas or a co-coordinator. He's a position coach.
Yeah.
And you get that opportunity like that. You have to take it. And I wish him nothing but the best.
Was he going to be the defensive coordinator for Texas in the next year or two? No, he wasn't. Like that position solidified here. So if you want growth in your career, you're going to probably have to look at other options. You can love Texas all you want. That doesn't mean he's never coming back to Texas when a defensive coordinator position does open up eventually at some point in time. Maybe Cristo Conte, Steve Sarkisian, looks his way again, and he already have that in with them. And so it's not goodbye forever. It could be, it might be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. How many times do we see coaches return back to their alma mater after being a positions coach, going somewhere else, getting another experience, and then gaining what the experience that they needed to gain to then get the position that they really wanted at the end of the day?
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see how he does. I'll be rooting for him at Tech. I already kind of like Georgia Tech. It's an easy ACC school to root for. They were a lot of fun this year to watch. Actually,
they were super cool with the wishbone offense back in the day, the triple option. They stopped running it, obviously, but they were kind of one of the last major Power 5 teams to actually like keep running it, and that wasn't a Naval Academy or Army or anything like that. So yeah, they've always been an easy team to root for.
Yeah, I did a dynasty with him back in the day on college football against my dad.
Yeah.
Where I took him to the national title and then got blew out by Alabama, but still one of those teams like I've played before, so it's like you have that indirect connection with.
Yeah.
And so I'll be rooting for him, and it'll be fun to see how their defense does and kind of what he brings there. His first chance to be a coordinator at this level.
All right, Jake, that'll be it for football talk. And let's move it over to basketball. Rodney Terry and the Texas Longhorns men's basketball team losing to Vanderbilt in what was just, I mean, talk about an ugly game that never really had my attention even. I mean, I kept up with it, but I just kind of knew what was going to happen. It felt like really throughout the entire game. But yeah, Texas losing to Vanderbilt and now has to take on Alabama, number 2 team in the country, and they look like they're poised, or at least offensively, to make a very deep run in the college March Madness tournament yet again this year.
Yeah, it like you said, the game just never captured me,
and Texas was winning at halftime.
Yeah, but the defense was just bad. This is one of those games where you're reminded of some of those early season games where you go, this defense looks bad. And then they really hadn't been a bad defensive team as of late. Not great or really good, but just fine, like average.
Mm-hmm.
And then this game was just it was a step in the wrong direction for Texas. And now you have you've lost 3 out of your last 4 now. We talked about before they had won like 4 of the last 5 or whatever. And then you had the one tough loss to Ole Miss in there, and that it seemed, like a big deal. If anything, it seemed like not a positive, but not the worst loss. You lost on the road in a tough fought game where you still played good basketball. Then you dominate LSU in your best win of the year, not best win of the year, but best performance and just blowing out a team on the road. Then you drop an embarrassing game to Arkansas that the scoreboard doesn't show. You actually lost by the same amount this game, and the Arkansas game was still worse than this. But yeah. I mean, they gave up 51 points in the second half.
Jake, Vanderbilt had not scored. That it's the highest scoring output that Vanderbilt has had in a win this season. The only other in conference play, the only other game where they had 87 points, which would be more than the 86 that they scored, was in a 103-87 loss to Alabama. So they still nearly lost that game by 20 points. They just put up 87 points in a loss. But other than that, they have yet to score over 86 points in a win this season, and they managed to do that to Texas in a 51-point second half scoring effort. Again, like I said, there was nothing about this game that made me feel good going into it, watching it, keeping an eye on it, doing chores in the middle of it. I got so sick of watching it and keeping up with it that I just said, you know what, I'm officially done with this year's team, and all the pessimism that I've had going and talking about these games on this podcast, I feel validated for.
Yeah, and to be fair, from my side, I was trying to play the other side of the coin just because they were still winning, starting to win games, looking better, and so I was trying to be the positive side of the podcast. Not that in our private conversation, I very clearly was like, this team is not very fun to watch, but I try to remain positive when there's things to be positive about. Well, there's nothing to be positive about again now. I was like, Rodney Terry, if they make the tournament, win some games, you can't get rid of them. And now it's like, well, that's not going to happen. So, but sooner rather than later, I think we'll have an episode on this podcast where we start to list some names that we think Texas should call. Because not only is the offense inconsistent, but something that has stood out about the defense, even though I just said they kind of been an average defense, they don't create turnovers. They forced 7 turnovers in this game. Mm. Texas only turned it over 9 times, and they turned it over more in this game. They lost the turnover battle. And that's just awful. And you had a 10-point lead in the second half of 14 minutes left, and yet you ended up losing this game comfortably. And they didn't even really have a awful second half scoring drought. They just stopped getting stops.
Yeah.
I mean,
and if Jake, if you play defense that way against the team that you're about to play tonight,
let's just get into predictions. Because I don't have anything more to say about the Vandy game.
Well, there's nothing exciting about this team, and there's nothing that this team does that
Trey Johnson is exciting. That's it.
But there's nothing that this team does that's just really good as a team. They don't score the ball well as a team. They don't distribute the ball well on offense as a team. They don't move the ball well. They don't rebound the ball like extremely well. They're okay at it. They don't turn the ball over on defense very much or force turnovers. They don't get fast break opportunities. There's nothing they do really, really well. They just play a game of basketball, and then they hope they win by the end of it, or that they're close enough at the end of a game to make it exciting. And that's
there's no identity
where I'm at with them.
No identity whatsoever.
No identity. They just play basketball. You can't point to one thing that this team does, and you're like, that's the identity of this team. They're not a three-point shooting team. They're not a paint team. They're not a high-flying dunk team. They're not an aggressive defensive team. They just don't do anything that just wows you or makes you be like, yep, that's the style of basketball that they play.
And you look at the scoring distribution for this game, it's actually pretty good in the starting five. The problem is you have two guys off the bench who scored.
Yeah.
And that is another fatal flaw of this team. Granted, they are hurt. Mark did not play in this game. Neither did, obviously, Weaver, who's been out for some time now.
Yeah.
And so they are battling injuries, but there's just no reason that a Texas team, and Texas isn't, in basketball isn't what they are in football or baseball. They don't have that same pool, but you should never be this shallow on your depth scoring. And this team has been, even when Weaver, and I mean, it took a lot for Pryor to start getting more minutes. And I don't think we kind of talked about it several weeks ago. I don't think Rodney Terry tries the bench enough.
No,
because as soon as we talked about that, Pryor all of a sudden started getting some minutes. Now he's playing over 20 minutes a game.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of their most effective guys that comes in and actually provides a spark. And it's like, are some of these other guys on the bench, especially guys that have been here for a year developing and were 4-star recruits, you tell me there's no way they can get on the court for 10 minutes?
What's it going to hurt to put them in for 5 minutes, see what they do, and if they provide...
You're going to go on a scoring drought?
What, with your starting five? All right, Jake. 8:00 tonight, ESPN, home against Alabama, number 2 team in the country. And just what's going to happen?
Ugly. It's
okay. You want my score prediction?
Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll give mine.
105-72.
I had one like that. Then I made it a little closer, 104-85.
Yeah.
And I don't think it'll be that close.
And the reason why we score as many points as we do is because Bama just takes 2 seconds off the clock, scores a 3, and then gives it right back to the offense.
And with how Texas is playing defense, it concerns me how many points Alabama could put up in this game.
It'll be triple digits. I can almost guarantee it. Well, all right, Jake, that's going to do it for today's episode. Again, we drop these Tuesday through Saturday at noon. Give your prediction of the game. How do you feel about the way we're talking about the basketball team? Is it warranted? Is it not warranted? I would hope that the majority of Texas fans would agree with us that this is an unacceptable season for Coach Rodney Terry and this Texas Longhorn basketball team. But if you disagree, please feel free to mention that in the comments, and we'll have a discussion about that with you in the comments. And so for Jake Jimerson, I'm Tanner Carlson. This has been your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns right here on All In Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.